Yeah, but it's time to go live.
Everybody pass a message. Tune in.
Can't see you, man.
I know it. Let me get back.
Oh,
They gonna let us be on this show. We having too much fun.
oh man.
You ready, Mr. Handy? I said, you ready? We're gonna open the floodgates.
Turn it back. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Reviving Mississippi Show. I'm your host, Dekeither Stamps. We got a great show lined up for you today. We got Miss Evangelist Rochelle Ward here. She's going to be talking about a health ministry. We got Dr. Dobbs from the Mississippi Department of Health. We got Mr. D. Fogg. He's going to come in and talk to us a little bit this afternoon. So we got a great show lined up for you today. I can't wait to dive into this thing, man. How you doing?
Doing good, brother. Doing good. It's another good day.
Yeah.
Doing some good work for the people. How about yourself?
We just flew in from Washington, D.C.
Are your arms tired?
Oh, you got jokes today, don't you?
Hey, enjoy yourself.
Hey,
Laughter is
we had
therapy.
a great visit with Senator Cochran, Senator Wicker, Congressman Thompson's office, and the rest of our congressional delegation, Representative Harper's office.
Okay.
Talking about our issues that we have here in Jackson, Mississippi. So I'm gonna get the folks an update on that on the tail end of the show. We're gonna dive into this health ministry. Evangelist Ward is here to talk about a health ministry event that's happening in April. Tell us a little bit about your event.
Okay, so Touching the World Ministries, we're located at 2875 Mayor Everest Boulevard in Jackson. We're having a community-wide health fair. We'll offer free health screenings, free food, and free entertainment. So 1 Corinthians 6:19 states that our bodies are temples of the Holy Ghost. Therefore, we must do all that we can to stay healthy, which includes eating healthy, diet, exercising, getting routine wellness checkups. So our focus of the health fair is to bring awareness to the community because knowledge is key. The more knowledgeable you are about your health, the better equipped you are to take care of your health. So at the health fair, myself, I'm a nurse practitioner, so I'll be on site performing free breast screening exams, screening for breast cancer. We'll also teach the community as far as doing self-breast exams and how to do, those self-breast exams every month. Also, we'll have nurses and medical assistants on site. They'll be checking vital signs, blood pressures, pulse rates, O2 sat levels, which are oxygen levels in the blood. We'll also have a referral system in place. If participants don't have a family doctor, we'll refer them to one, or even if they don't have insurance, we're going to partner with Jackson Heights Comprehensive Health that'll do those exams for them as well. Mayor Tony Yarborough will be in attendance, also the Jackson Fire Department, and also we'll have some representatives from different organizations in the community as well.
Okay, so give the date and time once again.
Okay, it is Saturday, April the 16th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay, so if you got somebody in your family who you know hasn't been screened properly, they may not have been going to the doctor properly, this is a great opportunity for you to take advantage of to get them screened, because we have to get you. Health is the first blessing. You can't be a blessing to somebody else if you're not healthy. So we know here in Mississippi we have a huge problem when it comes to health and obesity,
Right.
and being aware of our health conditions. I tell folks go to all these health screenings,
Right.
because they're free,
Right.
and you learn a little bit every time you go to different focuses. Some do focus just on diabetes, some on blood pressure, some on breast cancer, other types of cancer. So all these different tragedies are affecting our community. So let's support those who are doing these types of things. If somebody wants to volunteer or contact you or contact the church, how would they do that?
Call me at 601-826-6200.
Get that number one more time.
601-826-6200.
Okay, and give the address of the church one more time.
Okay, it's Touching the World Ministries, 2875 Maker Everest Boulevard here in Jackson.
Okay, well, Evangelist, I appreciate you for coming by.
Thank you for
You all
having me.
prepared. You got a whole script and everything prepared, man.
Oh, she ready.
Man, where's my script?
Well, you do so well with coming off the top of the head. You're so full of knowledge, my brother.
That he is, that he
You
is.
don't need to write it down. Let the Lord use it.
Well, I do appreciate you, sister, for coming out and also for doing this, because you're right in the heart of Ward 3. We got a lot of folks in that area who need this and surrounding area. So definitely everyone on April the 16th at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. come out to Touching the World Ministries on Medgar Evers Boulevard and get your health screened and learn a little bit more about how to be a better steward of your own health. So thanks again, sister,
Thank
for coming.
you.
And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you for coming.
Thanks.
You know, everybody, health is important. And we have also in the studio today Dr. Dobbs from the Mississippi Department of Health. Come on, step forward, Dr. Dobbs.
The doctor's in the house.
Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate you for coming as well, because, you know, like we spoke about the health ministry, health is important.
Yes, sir.
And the Mississippi Department of Health is focused on Mississippians' health.
Absolutely.
So first, just tell us a little bit about the Mississippi Department of Health, and then we'll get into, you know, the topic that's the burning fire that we have right now.
Yeah, no, thank you. So the Department of Health does a lot of things, and a lot of things people don't know. You know, we know there's a county health department in pretty much every county except for 2. And then we have the central office. We do birth certificates, all that sort of thing, but we do tuberculosis control. We make sure kids are immunized against deadly diseases. We make sure that TB is controlled. We treat STDs and track HIV to make sure that that people get into care and they have access to treatments. We provide HIV treatments for, you know, millions of dollars a year. So there's a whole bunch of things we do. We also do a lot of chronic disease prevention. You know, talking about the screening and stuff. We've got a whole division on chronic disease prevention, and certainly in Mississippi, if we look at what kills us, it's the top 3 is heart disease, cancer, and stroke, and 80% of diabetes and about 40% of cancers are preventable.
Okay. So now, say that last line again. That was a pretty powerful statement you just made.
80% of diabetes and 40% of cancers are preventable.
Really? What are some of the steps folks can take to be on the preventative side of these types of chronic diseases?
Sure. The first step for prevention is healthy lifestyle. You know, I know that you guys are just talking about that. You know, exercising regularly, watching your diet, those are critical. And then those things start at a young age. And so when our kids start doing it right, they take it through adulthood, and that's the most important thing. The second thing, obviously, is going to the doc and get screening. We know that we have an unacceptably high rate of death from breast cancer.
Right.
We don't get screened early enough. And so we know that if you get screened early in breast cancer, your response rate's better. Everybody over 50 should have a mammogram, or a woman anyway, should have a mammogram, and everybody over 50 should have a colonoscopy.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
So I got a few years.
Yes, sir. Quite a few, I'm afraid, yes, sir.
Okay. But it's important. I got several family members who have gotten colonoscopies, and you know, learning early and being able to cut things off at the beginning is important.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
So, what are some of the services that the Mississippi Department of Health offers here in Mississippi?
Well, we have, you know, we do restaurant inspections, make sure that restaurants are healthy, wastewater, make sure that that's done properly. And we'll talk about water. Obviously, we have a water safety division. I'm in the Office of Communicable Disease, so mostly I work on preventing, you know, infectious diseases and responding to outbreaks. But anything that's a human health, we're involved with. From my office, which tracks disease, and certainly if we have, like we had that spice outbreak last year, we were deep in that one.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever's going on that impacts Mississippi health, we're here for you.
Okay, so we had an issue that came to a head about lead in water.
Yes, sir.
And your office is leading the charge in the testing of this lead in the water in Jackson. Could you tell us, the people, how they can access the services? Me personally, I want everybody's house to get tested. I've been pushing for an emergency declaration to get funding to give people the assurance that they get by just getting tested. There are a lot of people who buy all this bottled water and buying filters.
Right.
And they're buying filters and don't even know if their house has an issue.
Right.
They're spending hundreds of dollars buying filters when they can spend $15 and get their house tested to know if they even need the filter in the first place. So,
Yeah,
can you talk about that?
Testing is an important thing that people can do to make sure that their house is not going to have lead in it. So it's important to understand where the lead comes from.
Okay.
Before 1987, people had lead solder on the pipes in their house, and just these joints where most of the lead can come from. Certainly there's some old lead pipes, but most of it's going to be in the house, and so if you're in an older house, it's going to be more likely that you're going to have lead components to your plumbing system, unless you've had it redone. So, you know, if you have an older house, you're more likely to have lead in there versus a newer house, although you can still have it in newer houses. So that's where it comes from. And what happens is as you guys are aware, there have been some variations in the water chemistry that have permitted the lead to kind of leach out into the water.
That's right.
And then when that happens, then people can be exposed to it. You can get tested. You can have your water tested at the house for $15. Used to be 20, but now we were able to work it down to 15
Well,
bucks.
I do appreciate you for negotiating it down. And these are just the lab costs.
Yes, sir.
The
Yes,
raw
sir.
lab costs. It's not like, you know, the people are paying for, you know, folks' salaries and all this kind of stuff. It's the raw lab costs of actually conducting this type of scientific testing.
Absolutely.
What number would someone call to request?
Well, the best thing to do would be going to healthyms.com website, like www.healthyms.com, and on the left you'll see a water safety and lead, a little banner, and you click that and it has a link to how to get your water tested. And there's a phone number. You can go by and pick up a test kit, and they'll tell you how to collect your water, and then you just bring it back and we'll get your result.
Oh, well, good. That sounds like a pretty simple process. Mac, I think we're gonna go by and pick up a whole bunch of these test kits.
Sounds good.
I got a bunch of seniors in the area who may not have access to the internet and all that kind of stuff. I know. I've been pushing for this emergency declaration, so since I haven't been able to get enough internet on this deal, we just wanted to do it for ourselves.
Now, at what level, from you guys' standpoint, from the health department, can you declare this as an emergency and a need for to get it tested to help, you know, what Councilman Stamps is talking about? Because if you know that area, you know, some of our most popular well-built houses are built before 1987. You know, our neighborhoods are full of them. They're real nice homes, but they were built before 1987. So how would that happen? What needs to happen to help with that? Because a lot of folks are panicking, especially a lot of the elderly don't have access to internet, not know how to find it. They just hear it on the radio or TV or something like that. So.
Yeah, so we're mobilizing resources internally to try to expand testing. We're starting a special testing initiative next week to retest houses and to assess the impact of flushing 1, 2, and 4 minutes to see how effective that is to getting all the lead out. Because what really happens is the lead gets in your pipes when it sits there overnight or for a long time. But if it's coming from the city water, because there's no lead in the city water, if you can flush out those pipes, then there should be no lead in the drinking water. So we're going to have that information hopefully really soon. And then after that, we're going to try to do some more sampling throughout the city with a larger number of folks so that we can give people better information. It's not going to be, you know, every house, but we can have, you know, better information.
I was in Washington, D.C. this past week, and I met with 2 of the council people from Flint, Michigan. And we were able to sit down for a good amount of time and really just talk about, okay, their situation,
Right.
And some of the actions that were taken. And, you know, they talked about be as proactive as possible on the front end. Because the more action you take on the front end, even though you might scare some folks, it's better in the long run because you're aggressive with it. You're not trying to chase an issue down the road. You haven't exasperated.
Folks are not sick yet.
Out of control.
Right.
People ain't sick and being, you know, in an unhealthy situation. So that's why I'm trying to be more aggressive. Now I was you know, pretty aggressive before I left, but now that I sit down and talk to these folks who are actually going through this,
Right.
they said, hey, don't let the pedal up and only let the data drive your decisions. You know, because when you get people's houses tested, then you know the situation at that house, and you know the situation at the next house. But as long as you let your emotions drive your decision, you don't really know what you're talking about. But until you sit down and get, you know, houses tested and those kinds of things, then you let the actual information determine how motivated or how aggressive you should attack this problem. So we're going to keep pushing on getting all the houses in those affected areas tested, and hopefully we can make it mandatory. You know, because to me, this is a health component to this.
It is.
You know, I need to know that the house, that that this house is lead free.
And that's a question that, like, one of the community folks asked last night at the community meeting. was asking, like, so isn't that the same water that's in the pipe? If I flush it, what's the difference? You know, it still has to travel through the pipe. And I was trying to explain to her as best I knew. I was telling her, just like you have good water that come out of a bottle, and if you leave it sitting out, it's gonna get stagnant. You know, if it gets stagnant, stay there, bacteria ready to grow. But she's like, well, I'm not talking about bacteria, we're talking about lead. Well, I said the whole point about it is as long as it's moving and not sitting, it's not easy for it to collect, and that's the purpose of running the water for a few minutes before you start to use it and whatnot. Did I tell her correctly? Or?
You're exactly correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it has to sit in the pipe for a long time
Okay.
to get any appreciable amount of lead. And it's important to talk about how much lead we're talking about.
Right.
It's too much. There's no doubt there's too much. We're talking about, 15 parts per billion is going to be some of the levels we're seeing, in the 20s. 20s and 40s were the highest we saw on the slouch random testing. In Flint, they had 4,000. So
Right.
we're
Right.
a couple of orders of magnitude below. It's still too much, but it's
Right.
not. It's not quite as severe as Flint, thank goodness.
Let me catch this caller. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Good evening, sir. How you doing?
Good. I have a couple of questions. Is the water being tested between the plant and my water meter? In other words, as it travels from the processing plant through the city pipes of Jackson, and aren't those pipes old, made out of lead, and maybe soldered together? So my question is is the water being tested between the processing plant for the city of Jackson and my water meter? And the second question is, what actually does 15 parts per billion mean? 15 parts per million per billion of what?
Those are great questions. I
Yeah.
do appreciate it. Just for those who are watching online, his question was, is the water being tested from the water meter to the city plant? Is it inside the distribution system? Is testing going on there? And the answer to the question is yes. And we test water daily at the plant, and we tested sampling throughout the distribution system regularly. So, and it has not tested positive for lead. So,
Okay, so between the processing plant and my water meter, there's no lead in that water.
right, we haven't found not one single case of lead inside the distribution system or the plant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then the second answer, 15 parts per billion. I'll let the doctor answer that question.
Yeah, like so for every billion molecules of water, there's 15 molecules of lead.
Okay. So give some like a perspective, like when you say 15 parts per billion and the extreme case of a Flint, Michigan, give some parallel.
Yeah, so it'd be like the difference between maybe like a grain of sand dropped into a 55-gallon bucket versus a golf ball dropped in a 55. I mean, that might be not quite, but you're talking about a small
Right.
piece versus a larger piece. In lead, we know, well, that 15 parts per billion is what the EPA has said is something we got to respond to. But even lower levels are not good for you, particularly for young kids. And that's one of the reasons we've really been kind of pressing on these young kids. Honestly, the amount of lead in the water. I mean, I've been careful not to drink it. I work in the city, but it's not going to really hurt adults, to be quite honest. It's really going to be the young kids, pregnant women that we're worried about, because even if they have small elevations in their lead levels, it could potentially affect their neurological development.
Oh, okay.
So the main thing, go ahead, sir.
Question, Council. Can I ask? I just read an article. It said that the problem with even low levels of lead is once it gets in your body, it doesn't, you can't get rid of it. So I guess it just accumulates if you keep injecting it. Is that correct, Doctor? Or?
It can accumulate. So your cumulative exposure is important to get into like your brain tissue and stuff like that. The other thing that's important I want to tell folks is most lead that kids and people are exposed to is not from water. Only about 20% of it ever comes from water. It's mostly from old paint and old homes.
Right, and that's what they also talked about up in Flint. They were talking about that even though the water was a dire situation, the exposure came mostly from the chipping paint and even inside the houses, and folks repainting your houses if you got old lead paint.
Right.
Remember back in the day you used to have leaded gasoline, and now you have unleaded gasoline. It was because of lead exposure. you know.
Right.
And so the government's trying to restrict any exposure folks have to lead at all. So, go ahead, man.
I want to ask, can you sort of expound, because we talk about health screening and being aware, what are some physical things you notice within a person when they have an overexposure to lead? I know you're saying neurologically, 'cause I know a lot of different things can affect the neurological system. So I know twitching, a lot of things like that is neurological, but what does the lead primarily affect?
It wouldn't be visual so much.
Uh-huh.
At the small levels that we're talking about that we'd worry about for kids, you wouldn't really notice it. You have to actually do blood screening.
Okay.
And so we recommend all the kids 5 and under to get blood screened here in the city of Jackson. And then on the Jackson Water.
Now, would that show up on like regular, you know, when they, you know, young kids have to go to the health department, to the doctor, get immunization and do blood work for starting school, or do they have to particularly look for the lead in the blood work?
Yeah, they have to order that specially.
Separately.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then, but you know, those small levels that might cause kids to have sort of like hyperactivity and lack of attention, and maybe their motor, like their vocal skills might be delayed. But really high levels can cause like nerve damage and anemia, low blood counts, confusion. Like people have super duper high levels, like work at a battery plant or something like that. But the levels we're talking about right now are low, but it's really the little kids we got to make sure we're worried about.
Okay. So get that phone number, and everybody, to get your lead sampling kit, you can call 601-576-7582. That's 601-576-7582. That's for a Mississippi Department of Health home lead sampling kit. Again, that's 601-576-7582. And just to reiterate again, the reason I've been pushing for this emergency declaration is not to scare everybody.
Right.
It is to ring the bell and let every other level of government know that I want to get every house in the affected areas tested, whether the people, agree to it or not. And I want to go to their front yard and turn their water hose on and get a testing kit. I want to get everybody's house just so I know what's going on, so I can inform these folks. There's some folks in Jackson right now that don't even know it's a lead situation.
Oh yeah.
It's been in the news for 2 months now. And there's some folks still in the city of Jackson that just don't know.
Right.
So I want to physically get the resources necessary so we can send somebody to folks' house, knock on the door, and say, "I'm here, and we want to test your water for lead. Can we come in for 5 minutes and go to your kitchen sink and your bathroom sink and get 2 samples and get the results logged in, and so we can inform you of your situation." That's really all this is for. And also, I'm seeking some funds for some upgrades to our corrosion control system at the water plant. So that's really what this is for. I don't, as a city, we got issues with water sewer revenue already.
Right.
So, the $2 million or so it's going to take to get off for the sampling kits and the personnel costs to do this, is not necessarily in our budget right now to do that. And also, upgrade to the corrosion control system at the plant. It's not in our budget either. So that's what I'm seeking this funding for. And I'm gonna keep ringing this bell till I get enough support to help me move on this thing.
And I will say, those who are in the listening audience or viewing on Facebook, it will help if you can push this needle also to write people that, or contact those who are in high authority, whether it be state government, federal government, even county. What can we do to help push this issue? Because it's just not. It's our problem. It's our problem, and we have some people that come up with solutions. So let's support it. Until we can find a better solution, let's support the one that's on the table.
Right. People. I always submit to a better idea.
Right.
But but doing nothing, it's not an option. I'm a leader. Leaders act. They don't just sit there and do these tests all the daggone time. They have to do something. And I know the addresses of folks who've been tested positive for lead and no action happened. No filtration system. None of those kinds of things have been done. So I'm not going to sit back and just let people be unhealthy, especially with something that has long-term health.
Right.
Once you get lead exposure, that's long-term health. And I think the whole purpose of even having a government is to keep people safe and in a secure environment.
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their action or inaction. You know, the government's not supposed to let people get sick. You know, the government's supposed to step in and do everything it can do to move the needle to help people, you know, go forward in life. So.
And I would like to ask Doc, I might have to wait till you get off, and we have a youth event going on this Saturday. So it'd be great if somebody could come or to be able to pass out some information. There's gonna be a lot of children there.
Oh, okay, great.
If you have some information, give it to us. You got brochures and anything like that, we'll get it out in the community as well. Let me catch this call. Hello, caller, welcome to the show.
How you doing? I realize the water ain't no good, but at least they ought to read the meters right and quit sending people these hot water bills. I've always knew the water wasn't no good.
Okay. And
But the bad part of it, you got to argue to get the right bill.
Okay.
well, I appreciate your call. You know, as always, you know, I stay on the administration always about getting accurate bills. You know, the way this form of government works is you have an executive branch and a legislative branch. You know, I'm on the side of the fence that represents people. So I'm going to stay on the side of the people, champion for the people, and I'm going to hold the city accountable for acting right. I'm in charge of 2 employees, Matt and Karen. And the other 2,700 employees are responsible to the mayor, and we're going to stay on them to get accurate bills and to do the things that they're supposed to be doing in their positions. So Doc, you got some things, parting words you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, you know, I appreciate you having me and getting the message out. Certainly want to reiterate about the young kids and getting young kids tested. We're going to have a lot more information out, hopefully in the near future, to kind of help people make better decisions. You know, I think we really want, if people get the water tested, that's great, can help them out. But still take the precautions until we have more information, because the water chemistry could change, and we want to keep everybody as safe as possible. And just know that we're here to try to help resolve the situation as best we can and make sure we protect the health of everybody in Jackson.
Okay, and Dr. Dobbs' Department of Health number is 601-576-7582. That's 601-576-7582 for your lead sampling kit. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I much appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. So again, everyone, the phone number to call is to call in to the radio show is 601-948-5950. That's 601-948-5950. We had a great week this week. We just got back from Washington, D.C. It was our annual visit to our congressional delegation. Myself, Councilman Foote, Councilman Priester, went to Washington, D.C. And Mr. Fogg was good.
That's good.
Welcome to the show, Mr. DeRay Fogg.
Appreciate it. How long were we there for?
I was there since just over the weekend and Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Okay, and what all exactly did you all? I heard you say you were speaking with people from Flint and the best procedures and how we should take in reference to our situation. Was there anything else that you all discussed that kind of could give us some insight on how we can better our city?
Hey, the conference is the National League of Cities Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, city council people, mayors, aldermen from around the country meet in Washington, D.C. to just talk about issues. So we talk about police, fire, public works. We're all dealing with the same types of issues.
Right.
And it also gives us time to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I definitely appreciate the opportunity that the folks from Flint gave me to talk to them about their issues that are similar to ours.
Right.
And they gave me some good insight, some good perspective. You know, just hold your state government accountable was one of the biggest messages.
Okay.
It's hold your state government accountable. Let me catch this call.
All right.
Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I was listening to your show about the lead water
Yes, sir.
and the problems around the city.
Yes, sir.
The lead water, ooh, that's dangerous right there. That's just dangerous in it all. But the crime around the city, it's going to continue to be that way unless we stop, repent, and hearken to the word of God.
You know, brother, I was speaking at a church 2 weeks ago, and I was telling them, you know, the caller, just for those watching online, he talked about the crime in the city. And I was at this church a couple weeks ago, and I said, everybody has a role to play. On the city side, we got a role to play. At the home side, there's a role to play.
Right.
Because when you got a situation with this much violence, that's a heart and mind issue that you learn, you know, at home, that you learn in the world. And the church has a role to play in dealing with folks' hearts and minds. But also as adults, these young folks learn this violence from us.
Right.
They learn how to do conflict resolution from adults. If the only recourse they have is crime, is violence, it's because they haven't been taught how to deal with each other. You know, I'm mad at you, so I got to kill you.
Right.
You see, that should be the case. There should be some conflict resolution in there that folks can learn how to deal with each other, how to deal with this ingrained self-hate that we got. Let's catch this call. Hello, caller. Welcome to Reviving Mississippi. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, I got a comment. As far as like the crime in Jackson and what you just said about hate, as far as my recollection, our people got hate from the people that hate us, that oppressed our people, that kept our people in chains, slavery, bondage, hanging. Everything we learned from the people that had us over here and took us in captivity. We need to remove ourselves from them and build our own restructuring, grassroots movement to uplift our people in another way. Because if we keep on looking to the government to help us, this is the same government that oppressed us. So I think we really need to remove ourselves from the government the best way it can, and it's falling back.
Hey, you make a great point, brother. And you know, just for those watching online, the brother said, you know, we have to remove ourselves from this environment that has taught us this. And you know, I say to another degree, we have to remove that culture from our community, because even though some of us may move and go somewhere else, the both of us aren't going anywhere.
Right.
And so we have to create a new culture
Right.
inside of our own communities with those types of activities and that type of culture does not exist. You have something to say about it, man?
Yeah, it goes really deep, and I think one of the comments that Dr. Umar made for Kwanzaa, he was saying that our ancestors were not slaves,
Right.
because they had to be shackled to be kept and beaten and killed to be made to do something. But now we don't have that. You know, we have a free mind. You know, our mind is enslaved, and which is the deadliest thing. And that's why I talk to us about all of us taking ownership of, if we didn't cause this problem, but what can we do to help fix it?
Right.
You know, and that's taking ownership of it, and not, you know, I think a lot of us, you know, have that saving mentality that somebody's going to show up to fix everything, or it's somebody else's job. If you see a problem, then say, what can I do to start help remedying this problem?
Right. Let's catch this call. Hello, caller. Welcome to Reviving Mississippi. Turn your radio down, caller.
Yeah, I got a comment about what was said earlier as far as black people killing each other. For one, black people kill each other constantly. And the people who want a resolution, that's older people. But the younger ones, they don't want a resolution. They just want to kill. They'll kill anybody. It don't have nothing to do with other races. Black people hate each other. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, brother.
And to that lad.
Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
You know about them houses y'all think folks can get for 10 or 15 or $200 or $100?
Yes, sir.
In a way, okay, we got 7 districts, right?
Yes, sir.
So is there any way that the police can buy them houses and move in them districts?
Hey, you thinking like me, brother. You thinking like me. But
Because I look at it like, it'll take away a lot of problems when you know that the police live in them areas.
you know, I've been pushing for a long time, brother. When I first got elected, one of my first pieces of legislation was a residency requirement to require all new hires of the city of Jackson to live in Jackson, because at the time when right before I got elected, or we got elected, even the police chief didn't even live in Jackson. And I thought that was a crime in itself. You know, so
I know.
you know, we got.
When I was coming up, like on Main, I come from North Main, like on Main Street, they had a police stand right there. And that stopped a whole lot of people from doing a whole lot of food stuff downtown.
Right.
And then number 2, like the people that doing the crime, it's the people that we know are protecting these people and knowing who these people is out here killing folks, shooting folks. They won't tell us because they're their friends, but soon as something happens to them, they want somebody to come forward. So I think it ain't the police that doing the job.
police can't be everywhere. So as we as people, we got to speak up and say enough is enough.
That's right.
No, I wouldn't care if it was my brother, my dad, and my mom. They doing wrong. I'm telling it. You know, I don't care who they be my cousin, who be my own child. I'm gonna put him in jail. I'm gonna tell him if he do it to me, if he do it to somebody else.
Thanks a lot, brother.
You know, I think the people need to speak up too. They stop. You know, somebody I'm snitching. Ain't no such thing no snitching. You know, this is getting out of hand.
Right.
And I thank you for what you're doing. You're doing a good job. So
I appreciate it, bro.
Thank you.
We're gonna keep pushing. Thank you.
No.
Now I'm gonna say something right now. It's probably gonna be the most inflammatory statement.
Oh, Lord.
That brace yourself, right?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now, we got a police officer that got shot today.
Right.
It's the second police officer that's been shot, and the assailant is not dead. Now I got a problem with that. To me, in my mind, I don't care if I wasn't a police officer. If you pull a gun out on me, you got to die.
But you're speaking as a former police officer.
Yeah, but even as a police officer, let me talk to my police officers. Brothers, sisters, you in law enforcement, your number one goal is to go home to your family. Number one.
Right.
When you leave home, your number one goal is to come back. Off top. That's the first thing that you're supposed to be focused on is coming back. The second thing is performing your duty in an honorable way, in a legal way, right? So first goal to all my police officers is come home. Second goal is to do your duty in a legal and honorable way.
Right.
If somebody pulls a gun out of their hand, if somebody sees a police officer and has the audacity to keep a gun in their hand, I'm telling you, if you're on the sound of my voice, if a police officer shows up and you have a gun in your hand, in my mind, you have just given him the authority to send you to heaven.
I mean, because you have to think about it as well. Like you said, their main focus is, I need to get home. And when the cops show up, the whole purpose of the cops showing up is to de-escalate the situation, and it's pretty much for you to acquiesce to what they have to their orders. And when you choose to have your gun out on a cop,
you escalating the situation.
Right.
Right.
Let's get this caller, brother. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your question and comment?
Councilman.
Hey, brother.
Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Hallelujah.
Hey, thanks a lot, brother. Thanks a lot. He said, "Amen, hallelujah." I'm just being honest. You know?
And there's very
Very
slim. I mean, it's very slim situations where, where you can see not just firing right then. You know what I'm saying? And it takes a lot of training. Even when you're dealing with somebody that's mentally ill, you get to a certain point. This coming as an advocate dealing with this, you get to a certain point where you realize whatever de-escalation skill you were taught. If you see somebody that's schizophrenic that's suffering and had a break, it's a certain protocol that they don't work.
Let me tell you.
You're gonna have, because the thing about it is, you had to take them down.
I done seen some folks high. I've even gone and drank myself.
Right.
Going on when I was younger, go out drinking. When a police officer showed up, you know what happened to me?
You get
sober up.
Your body automatically sobered up.
You sober up quick.
Right. You talking about, see, I'm looking for mentally ill.
Right.
That's one of the only. Yeah. Right. But other than
even
that,
if you ain't crazy, you ain't stupid.
Yeah.
Even if you crazy, you ain't stupid.
When you partake in
You
your
can be
license.
crazy as you want to be, but when a police officer shows up, hello, sir, how are you?
Right.
You can act
Whether they snatch you out the car or not.
with the
Yes,
proper
sir,
respect for
problem.
law enforcement. That respect will bring you sobriety.
right.
That respect will bring you mental sanity.
And that thought
With
of
the
paying
proper
that ticket
respect for
brings
law
sobriety,
enforcement.
too.
And so, hey, I'm just telling you, police officer, your number one job is to come home.
Right.
Your number two job is to follow the law and the escalation of force that you've been taught in the academy and through your refresher training. You use the escalation of force to take care of the situation, but you do not let somebody shoot you without you shooting them.
Right.
I got a problem. I'm gonna talk to the chief about that. I got a problem we got 2 police officers. Remember the brother that got shot over on
Yeah.
the north side of Maine?
Right.
All right. Now, how is it that nobody else left there in a body bag? I got a problem with that.
And you know, it kind of sends out a message that I don't have to have that much respect for the law, because when an assailant shoots a cop and nothing happens twice, and then you have more knuckleheads out here,
Right.
that leads them to believe, oh well, if I pull a gun on him and I shoot him,
Right.
you know, and as long as he don't die, I'm fine. Like nothing's gonna happen.
See,
You know, and they
I'm like I said, I'm talking to the chief about this training, because anytime you got 2 police officers shot, ain't nobody else in the body bag, that's a training problem to me. It is a training failure.
And I want everybody to understand, that's why,
Am I right, Rev?
and that's why Councilman Stamps and all of us say, let's be as proactive as possible.
That's right.
To reach these young brothers and sisters, because I had some folks I spoke to before, and I told them I have more Malcolm than Martin.
Right.
So if I can help you any way I can, possibly we would give you the shirt off our back. But if you come at me in a confrontational way or threaten those who I've been given authority to protect,
Right.
I can do 3 things with you, brother. I can pray for you, I can pray with you, or we can pray over you.
Hey, Mac, I tell folks all the time.
It's 3 options, right?
Right.
Hey, you know, in the game of politics,
And the pastor's over there in front of us pulling the trigger with his finger.
I tell folks all the time, I don't know who is going to die,
Right,
but I'm not finna die
Right.
in this. I'm going home with my wife, my children.
right.
You know,
You know,
and that's me, a regular person, not in law enforcement. I'm going to the house.
Right.
This evening. So this little local head out here that want to stick me up, rob me, I got my little thing right.
He wasn't reaching. He wasn't reaching. I'm like, oh, he pulling out the.
I got my conceal. I got my permit with my hands carried.
So I thought you were reaching for the actual.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Hey man, I'm telling you, hey,
But
hey.
so
When it comes down to it, you got to see. To me, I'm not one of those Democrats that said, you know, nobody should have a gun and turn your gun in.
Yeah.
As a man, you got 2 jobs. First is to provide. The second is to protect. Now, when somebody, let me catch this call before I say something wrong.
We're gonna get in trouble. See, you gonna get us in trouble.
Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. I'm just curious. How many former officers in the studio?
Just
Yes, you.
Just me.
How much military did you go to the military? That's what I wanted to know.
Right, that's why I was military.
Because see, I have a theory about things. You know, I don't have bad run-ins with. I have all the admirations for the police all over the world. But see, you got a lot of people to get in there and they scared. They don't need to take their job. They're afraid.
Oh, you're right.
And from my observation, the majority of the people that's on the force throughout the country, I believe it's probably maybe 30% only served in active duty and really got into battle. And I believe you got a lot of bad seeds, my brother. I really believe it's probably about 45% bad seeds in the police department. Most people that I've met in the police department, they're pretty good, pretty decent people. But you got some bad seeds. One time, I'm telling you a quick story and get off. We was playing. I was probably 19, 20 years old. And we was just playing on the street. For somebody, I guess the police, it was some bad police. Both these police now been deceased. One of them killed himself, a woman killed the other one. Anyway, these guys, we was playing out in the road with nothing going on. And these guys put me in handcuffs. And once they got me in handcuffs, they took me around the corner and threatened to whoop my behind. I mean, I wasn't afraid because I had the creator on my side. But they ended up dropping me off. I guess they call themselves dropping me off in somebody else's neighborhood or whatnot. This happened right here in Jackson. And this has been like 30 years ago. But I see bad cops all the time. There's some good policemen. There's a lot of good policemen around. I have a couple of cousins that's policemen. But what I'm saying is, a lot of these guys, they don't need to take their job if they're afraid. If you're afraid, you don't need to take their job.
Oh, you're right. You're totally right.
I know, if I'm living in L.A., I know how that police force is something else. It was corrupt during the time I was out there. It was during the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So I'm knowing that you have these systemic problems throughout the country. I'm glad nothing happened here in Jackson like it has happened, in Missouri and throughout New York and throughout the country. I think we have some of the finest police officers here, but I just wanted to address that. And some of those bad cops and some of those bad guys or some of those bad criminals, I think they should enlist into the Marines. Because the Marines, that's what they do is kill. They love to kill. That's their job is to kill. And so I think some of these bad people out here, on both sides, I've been saying that for 40 years. So I just think the coach takes my car. I just am curious to find out.
That's a good point. That's a good point, bro. That's a good point.
Appreciate it.
Let me catch some of these other callers. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hello?
Hello, you on there?
I was just listening to the last caller that called in about, one of you all, well, first of all, I wanted to say, about a good job. Everybody doing anything, but what would it be like if an individual, like a citizen, surrender to every command of a police officer, and the police officer is not doing his duty and violate the citizen rights?
You got a good point.
What were you all trying to do?
All right, let me just explain it to you. If you're in a situation with a police officer and you got a gun and the police officer got a gun, that puts you in a bad spot in negotiating your life from the beginning. Now, everybody knows the story about me and how even I ran for office because of a situation with JPD with some overzealous police officers that thought they were cowboys and thought that they wanted to just treat me any kind of way.
Right.
And their supervisor thought the same thing. And so, hey, turn your radio down, brother. So I'm not for vigilante policing
I'm
either.
not trying to interrupt you, and then, but I want to ask you this.
Go ahead.
Is that the officer all the way right? I mean, if you drive just say the officer's called out to a situation, and you got some crooked cops, just like you have crooked individuals.
Right.
So
Let me.
like, at the same time, you got to see what's going on when just an individual surrender to a cop and he brutalized.
You're right. Let me respond to that. Thanks a lot, caller.
You were thrown down, stepped in the back, and your hands up in the air, and now, this all this violence coming from. Because, the younger generation do not have the knowledge that we have. We can bear down, when the police stood up, just like you said a little earlier, if an officer put up, we free. We gonna get down, raise your hand and do what you do. But there's a different generation than me.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Thanks a lot, caller. I appreciate you for calling.
I'm gonna get.
Let me just respond to that. Now I know we got some police officers out there that need to be retrained, and some of them don't even need to be on the police force.
Right.
And through intense training, I want to intensify the training because that flushes out the weak ones. See, when you intensify the training, now you get better officers, and the ones who shouldn't be officers go on to the other side and go find somebody else in the police force. Because we do have a problem with police officers escalating situations that don't need to be escalated.
Right.
With bad attitudes. So you always gonna have your 10-15% of every force. Every force that's out there has their 10 to 15% that makes a negative perception of the whole other 85%.
Right.
Right. And so that's up to the rank and file to call those brothers out, call those sisters out. If you on the police force, you know who is out here acting like a cowboy. You know these folks.
Right.
Turn them in, hold them accountable, because they're making you look bad. See, that's what I tell police officers all the time. If somebody's out there and you know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, hold their feet to the fire. And if your supervisor condone it, turn the supervisor and the patrol person in. And if the supervisor, and then go to the next supervisor. If he don't condone it, call me.
Right.
The best detergent is sunshine.
They
can go work, so they
bring
can
it to
go
the light.
somewhere else. Right.
Bring it to the light.
The best detergent out there is sunshine. So, I tell police officers all the time, you got a problem with somebody, that somebody's calling an issue, well, let's spread a little light on it. Let's catch this call. Hello, caller. Welcome to Reviving Mississippi. What's your question or comment?
The blue code extends all the way up through the ranks and all the way probably not to the chief necessarily, but to the higher ups. The blue code, you got to overcome that. Why don't you talk about the real deal? That's what it's all about.
I appreciate it, brother. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, you guys, I'm loving the dialogue. I got to go to Bible class where many of our brothers need to be headed tonight, and that'll solve probably 2/3 of the social ills that we're faced with. That's number one. And the father needs to be taking their sons and their daughters. That's number two. Number three, I agree with the caller, 3 calls back, who said that you got a situation where police are scared. I think they're not only scared. I think, like you said, they sometimes contribute to escalating problems because they don't have the proper training. And training is a solution. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I hope I can see some of that, and I hope I can see the results. Number 4, a lot of the police officers are out of shape. Male and female.
That's right. You're right. That's right.
My question, I'm driving my family, I got kids, I got school-age kids, and they're right, but look at that police officer over there. I'm like, yeah. They're looking at male and female, they say, who are they going to take, Bob? If they have to get somebody, who are they going to take? They can't get somebody running 4 miles.
That's right.
So that's embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
And Chief Vance, he knows it. But I mean, I know they got recourse, I know they got police officers have rights, but when those guys get out of the academy, it shouldn't just be about, well, I made mine, I'm there now, I'm going to make my money, I'm going to make my ends, I'm going to come home every night, and I'm going to eat these donuts in between. Right. They should have pride in the way they look. And then the next point is, the people are not afraid of them because the police don't break them down, they don't crack heads. Rudy Giuliani in the 80s cleaned up the problem in New York, downtown New York, attempts to push it to hustlers and the prostitutes. He broke all that up, he broke that stuff up at the door, and he was cracking heads, coming and going, and he let the word be put out that we're not going to come to downtown New York and party like he did, before he got there. And I'm not going to take no junk off the police officer. I'm not going to take the name and badge number and my date and time and my surroundings and report him or her if I feel that they're violating my rights. And I know how to pick up the phone and call my law, too.
Exactly.
But yes, our people need to be educated. My final comment is, I'm not knocking Democrats, but and I do not vote Democrat, and I'm not ashamed of it. I generally vote Republican. But let me say this. If we keep going the way we're going, if we keep getting behind Hillary without making, our black people, yes, I said our black people, we keep voting Democrat like we are, we're going to keep having what we have. I'm not knocking Hillary, I'm not knocking Bernie, even though he's a socialist. I'm not knocking other Democratic candidates. But when you vote Democrats and the Democrats are not trying to come in and do something to help you, they are part of the problem. And yes, Hillary, she wants your guns. And I'm not just telling you this out of emotion, I'm telling you what I know. So you won't even be able to defend yourself. If it was left up to Hillary, we would not have an NRA. We definitely would not have a council doctrine. And I would not have my IT sticker on the back of my concealed carry permit. And I want to tell y'all, thank y'all for the time. God bless.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And we got 5 minutes left to go on the show. I'm all for increasing the standards for police officers.
Right.
Me personally, I think all the ones who are not at the point where they graduated the academy,
Right.
then we give them 90 days to get back to the standard where you graduated the academy, from your education standard to your physical fitness to your to all of it. Right. You give them 90 days to get back to that level of performance. If you don't meet the performance, we'll give you an additional 30 days.
Right.
So I'll give you 120 days.
And that lets you know who's really serious about it, because nobody's going to just keep doing it over and over and over
That's
again.
right. And then we sing it to the house.
Right.
I'd rather, instead of having 450 police officers, give me 300 of them that's
300.
ready to work.
Because, think about it, a lot of lives are in
That's right.
our officers' hands.
But we got 4 minutes left to go on the show. Let me make one more comment. This election was yesterday. And I've been telling you, everybody on this radio and everywhere I can talk, you don't hand over your vote unless you have been negotiated something. My question to all these folks who've done all these endorsements is, what have we negotiated to get in return? I've been saying I want a black vice president, a black Supreme Court justice, a real Supreme Court justice, not a Clarence Thomas. I want some policy guaranteed. Yeah, that's what I've been pushing for.
Right.
And so we
Attainable policy.
Right, attainable stuff, not stuff pie in the sky.
Right.
So keep pushing that ball down the road. That's what we want. Because they're not going to win this election. The Democrats aren't going to win this election if they don't put a black person in the vice presidency. They don't have the energy level up.
Right.
180,000 people voted.
Yeah.
Across the whole state?
Yeah.
You think you're going to beat the Republican Party? No, you're not.
Right.
Stop fooling yourself. and you know, they want to put this, they want to let black folks carry the water for this election and go nominate this Castro guy as vice president.
Right.
That's foolish.
Yeah. And don't want to give anything back in return.
Don't give a party shot. Matt, go ahead. We got 2 minutes to go.
Well, I just want to say I think it was a great show, great combination. We continue to work. We do have some events going on to educate. We got a health initiative going on this Saturday at the Mega Evans Community Center. We decided to bring it directly to the community center. It's around obesity, snuff out obesity, and we're dealing with children, childhood obesity. We are in a day and time where we have to focus on childhood obesity. So I want to make sure if anybody want to come out and get some information, learn about some activities, it's right there at Mega Evans Community Center, right near Katy Chapel. We don't have all the solution, but we are trying to come up with what we think we can do. If all of us take on some accountability to see this as a people's problem, do what we can to help each other.
Mr. Farber.
Once again, I just want to thank you all for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. And one thing I just want to say back to what we were talking about, what one caller said, that this generation, they lack knowledge. They for some reason they do have this narcissistic lack of knowledge for some reason when it comes to authority. But as a substitute teacher, that's what I'm starting to see. It's up to us. We're responsible,
Right.
because they see us first before they see anybody else, and so we can't complain about their behavior if we're just sitting there and looking at them and then just chastising them without not saying anything to them. So let's get out there and let's help out our young people and stop setting them up for failure.
As always, everyone, you never let anybody put you in a position where you hate your own people. Because when you hate your own people, you're part of the very oppression we're trying to lift ourselves out of. I love you. We'll see y'all next Wednesday night.